Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're talking about the television show Invincible by Robert Kirkman with Stephen Yeun as the starring role. If you haven't watched the show, it's on Amazon Prime. Go check it out. We are getting into spoiler territory here, and you don't want this show spoiled for you. Trust me. So go watch it, then come back and check out our video. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Now, I don't know. I never read the Invincible comic. That was not. I knew it was coming out over the last since I moved to California. I knew that there was an Invincible comic, that Robert Kirkman had a superhero comic, and I knew Robert Kirkman because of The Walking Dead, and not even because of the comic, but because of the television show. So the television shows were like exposing me to all this work. But I did not read the comic. I still haven't read the comic, but I watched the show just because people were talking about it, and I like animated shows, so I figured why not. Um, is that kind of how did you end up coming across this show?
So my boyfriend read the comics and he really wanted to watch it, so I was like, oh, okay. And so I had no idea what it was about. I literally knew nothing at all. And when we were watching it, I was like, oh, it's like knockoff Batman, it's knockoff Wolverine, it's knockoff Superman, knockoff this, knockoff that, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman. They were all in there. The Flash.
The Martian Manhunter,
Yeah, they were all in an Aquaman fish.
Aquafish.
But yeah, they were all in it, and I was like, okay, I don't know where this is going, and I wasn't really like jamming with it at all. I was just kind of like, all right, the show is like whatever. Um, and it wasn't until, and let's just jump right into it, the very
The
very
last.
end, like
Yep.
after it's like literally the end. It's kind of almost
It's
like
an after credit sequence, basically.
exactly. And that's when I was like, I was shocked, I was hurt, I was sad, I was like kind of like Game of Thrones when everyone watched the Red Wedding. That was me. I was like, no, no, what the heck? And like I was sold from there, and then I just wanted more because you know how I feel about surprises, surprise endings, surprise deaths, people
Yeah,
dying.
of course. Just we get it. You like things dying.
I was so sold when everyone died.
Literally, I knew it too. Like thinking about it, of course you would love it. And I was caught off guard too. I had the same kind of like track as you of, the show's okay. It's nothing great, like it's okay. I'll watch it because I watch superhero shows. I watch cartoons, so I can dig this. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you get to that after credit sequence, and literally it's like such a good idea because the knockoffs that you brought up are so clearly knockoffs. So you just think, okay, we're gonna go through this show with these knockoffs. Like, what the heck? Like, how is that interesting? And they're literally utilized only to kill them off, just to get rid of them. And then you're like, oh, so the entirety of this show is going to be based around this event. That's interesting. Okay, let's see where this goes. So I'm impressed if there's anybody out there that did not watch it week to week that was able to watch that first episode and not immediately start the second episode.
Yeah, I could. And then when I think they released 3 episodes first, and then after that it was one episode, one episode, one episode, something like that.
Okay.
And it was like how can you not keep watching? It was like so devastating every time like an episode is over. It's like I wanted more, and I mean even my boyfriend couldn't handle it. He was like, I need to read the comics again because I feel so unsatisfied. And he was like he told me that that the show is not exactly like the comics, but they're pretty close. And the person who wrote the show is Robert Kirkman. So it feels like at least it was going in the direction where the same writer wanted it to go. So if it wasn't better than the comics, then it was at least about the same.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's funny because I heard something similar about the boys, and maybe eventually we'll talk about the boys on this show. But they changed things in the boys from the comic to the television show, and people agree that have seen both that the television show made improvements on what was in the comic. And in many ways, I feel like Robert Kirkman is trying to make improvements upon what he did in the comic in the show. And I like the fact that it is him that's making these changes because it gives him the opportunity to kind of try something new. And he did something similar with The Walking Dead too, because he was a consultant on The Walking Dead television show. But certain things that happened, he approved that were different from the comic because he was thinking to himself, "This is something I thought about doing, and I would have liked what I would have liked to do um, in my comic book." So I'm actually very happy to hear that he's the one because I wasn't sure if the changes were coming from him or just other people, but it's cool to know that the changes are coming from him.
Yeah, I mean, story aside, I was actually kind of confused. The very beginning was not very captivating to me. I thought that since the character in the first scene was voiced by John Hamm, that he would be important, but it
We all
doesn't
did.
seem so. And those two guys are just like you don't even remember their names. I think it's like Steve and
Nope.
John or something like that. Because they're really nobodies. They're just like average citizens who just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, they're gonna die then because they're nobodies. But why would they kill the guy who's voiced by John Hamm? But neither of them die. Nobody really dies. The show is very PG at the
Until
until the very end, and then after that, in the following episodes, it's like one of the goriest shows and animations that is like out there right now.
no, it's pretty good. And you ask why would they kill John Hamm? Well, the same reason they would kill the Guardians of the Globe, who are all voiced by Walking Dead alums. Like Lauren Cohan, it literally is the voice of War Woman, and that's Maggie on The Walking Dead. They got the guy that plays Morgan on the Walking Dead to do the Batman Darkwing, the Darkwing character. Rose Marquand was another character. Like almost all the Guardians of the Globe were famous Walking Dead actors. And when I saw that, because you can pause Amazon and see, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then they just killed them off, which made it even more shocking to me because I thought like you, they got all these they got these famous actors. These characters are going to be what are going to be just popping up throughout this show. Oh, you just got rid of. That's why you got all these people to come back, so you can just get rid of them. Um, and that character that's voiced by John Hamm, he only appears at the beginning of one other episode when he's in another country. I think he's in England with his son-in-law, and or no, his stepson. Sorry, he's in there with his stepson, and they almost get killed by like falling like hamburgers. But the thing about the television show is that we don't know, and we're going to talk more about this as we keep talking about some of these other characters and our frustrations or what we like about them. But nobody's arc is complete yet because we have technically only seen a season one. And when I talked to someone who read the comic, they told me that in volume one of Invincible, if volume one is this big, season one covered like that much material in the first volume. And they said, when I asked them how long do you think the seasons would be, or how many seasons we would get, they were saying if they don't cut out a significant amount from the comic book, he could foreseeably see us getting 8 to 10 seasons of this show.
Wow. Just for volume
Yeah.
one
No. Just in
in
general, like
general.
over the years. But volume one, they didn't even get through all of volume one in in this season one. So there's a lot. So the point is that there's a lot of material. So there could be a chance that that character that's voiced by John Hamm might reappear. Is what I'm just saying.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that just kind of, like, to talk about cast real quick, the cast is just, wow. Like, everyone has, like, a name. There's Sandra Oh, J.K. Simmons. Um, God, I can't remember her name, but she was in Community. She was in a lot of things.
Jillian Jacobs.
I think so.
You're talking about the person who voices Adam Eve.
Yeah, who doesn't show
Yeah, that's
up
Jillian
until
Jacobs.
the next episode, but just in general,
Yeah,
the
Zazie
cast.
Beetz is also there. She plays Amber.
Yeah, it's just so many names, and I think Steven Yuen does such a great job as Mark. And Sandra Oh too. I didn't quite catch that until a little bit later. When I was like, wait, this sounds like sounds like Sandra Oh. She's doing a lot of voice acting lately. Because she was also in Raya.
Right, she was. I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, she's good.
But yeah, I was just very exciting or excited about the cast and the fact that the Guardians are voiced by Walking Dead alums and they all get like killed at the beginning. It's just the shock factor is so big in that first episode at the end. It's
Yep.
like I almost wish that they did it sooner so that but it makes sense. It makes sense why it was the way it was. I just wish that it was a little bit sooner so that my attention would have been grabbed sooner because I was just
Yeah.
not really I didn't really know where the show was going and I didn't know what kind of show it was going to be until the very end.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I understand why the show did it that way because they wanted to spend the majority of the first episode introducing you to characters, and they really wanted to set up Nolan as kind of the lovable superhuman father figure because they were going to immediately turn that on its head by the end of the episode. And knowing what we know about how the show turns out and why Nolan's actually there, when he's talking to his son about his powers and the responsibilities that he has, it takes on a whole new meaning. And that's one of the great things I love it when shows do this or movies do this is when you can watch something the first time and think that it means one thing because you look at it and you think, oh, worried father trying to teach his son about being a superhero and doing it well. And then you get to the end and you rewatch it, and then you're like, oh, this is recontextualized. He's not talking about being a good superhero. He's talking about the sacrifices you're going to have to make being a Viltrumite, and then it just feels unsettling. So and it works out. It's really cool when shows are able to pull that type of thing off where you watch it a second time and things that you've seen before now have new context and therefore have new meaning.
There was this one line that he says where he's talking to the mom and he says, maybe our lives would have been better if he hadn't gotten powers. And
Yep.
part of me feels like that's just him, because he did have this weird mood change when Mark told him that he had powers. He wasn't like particularly excited. And I think it's because he didn't. I think he was comfortable, and he was hoping that that wouldn't have happened, so that he can continue to have a peaceful life.
I agree. I honestly think that if Mark never got powers, he would have grew old with Debbie and Mark, and once they died, then he would have enacted his plan to take over the Earth. But you really get the feeling that he's conflicted and that he wishes that Mark did not get his powers because he doesn't want to destroy the life that he's created because he actually does like it. But
Mm-hmm.
he is torn between the life that he wants versus the duty that he needs to fulfill. Um, I want to talk about one thing you mentioned where this is like one of the goriest animated shows on there, and I know one of the things I was thinking about is that this is kind of a example of an Americanized anime almost because if you've watched anime, then you know that there's a lot of more mature content anime out there. And any anime lover has seen at least a few anime, even the ones that are meant for teenagers or children, have blood in them. And so you're kind of used to seeing these shows where people get like killed in brutal ways with blood and gore and evisceration, but we don't see as much of that in animated shows in America unless it's comedy like Family Guy or Futurama or Simpsons, whatever. Like they'll do gory things on those shows and play it up for laughs. But there's very few times where we get a serious animated show that's intended for adults that's not based in humor. And so I think that's one of the reasons, another reason why Invincible is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, and it really does add to the shock factor because that's something that Americans are not used to seeing. And while we may be used to seeing it in anime, we've never really seen it in the way that this animation is drawn, where it looks like Batman, and the Batman drawings or the Superman drawings for the cartoons that are on kids networks. Um, and it's just kind of cool to see it going towards that direction here, because animation is not just for kids. I think we've been shown that, like you said, through comedy, and I think that this is one of the times where, like, we're just being shown how it can really be any genre. It doesn't just have to be comedy. It doesn't just have to be for kids. And like, animation is just another medium. So, and that's one of the
Absolutely.
things that they got down for anime in Japan. But like I said, it's just nice to see that movement coming over here.
Exactly. And Invincible is by no means the first show to do this. We have other shows like Castlevania, which also do this. And before Castlevania, we have the DC animated movies that were released. And a lot of the DC animated movies, specifically the ones based in the New 52 timeline, those are more adult. The final movie in the New 52 line of movies was um, Justice League Apocalypse War, and that one was basically like Invincible, where you're seeing terrible things done to characters that you've known for the like this entire time. So DC's also been kind of doing that, but they've kind of relegated it to their movies, away from like the mainstream of what you would watch if you're watching an animated show from them. uh, and then even with like, what is it, Young Justice, that they have a little bit of more mature adult content on there with violence, but it's locked behind you having to like watch it strictly online. So in that way, it's similar to Invincible, but Invincible is kind of the first time I've seen it where it's been accepted on such a large scale where more than just a niche fan base know about it. Like people that don't even necessarily watch a lot of comic book material, or at least not animated, are watching Invincible. And that's kind of amazing that it was able to break that barrier.
I do feel like at first glance, a lot of people who look at it are like, oh, it looks like it's for kids, superheroes, and stuff like that. But then it kind of isn't. It's actually pretty dark. But it's also kind of kiddish too, because it does have that superhero esque atmosphere. Because Mark is just a kid and he is
Yep.
innocent. But then there's a much darker side to the show, which is his father. So it's definitely not for kids. Don't let your kids watch this.
Yeah. And Omni Man, you talk about him. J.K. Simmons is a great actor, an amazing voice actor, who knew. And Omni Man is terrifying. Now, when we talk about the boys on another day, we can get into more comparisons. But for me, Omni Man is more intriguing and scarier to me than Homelander. And I like the character of Omni Man, even though I'm also terrified of the character of Omni Man. And this show does a really good job of creating really tense moments based on the expectation of what we've seen him do and what we know he can do as a Superman type figure in this world. So it's handled very well. And I love the fact that in the final episode, Mark does not beat his dad. He shouldn't. He absolutely shouldn't, because he hasn't been fighting as long. He's not as well trained. But through Mark's purity, like you said, his pureness of heart allows him to have such a simple answer to something his father didn't even think about, because his father's just thinking, everyone you love is going to be dead. Who will you have? And for Mark, he's so pure that he's like, I'd still have you. I'd still have my father. And what he says, his purity is what beats Omni Man, not his actual physical ability. And I really like that about that moment and about this first season.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out how he was gonna how was that battle in the finale gonna end? Because like there's just no way it would ever make sense for Mark to beat his dad. No way. That would have made a
No
bad
way.
show. But yeah, that was a very heartfelt moment, and ooh, words, right?
Right? It's good. Stephen
Powerful.
Young, man, selling it. So there's two other things I wanted to ask you about. Uh, First, what did you think overall about the characters, just in general? Because one of the things about they changed a couple of characters in this show. They changed Debbie, Mark's mom. She has more agency in this show than she did in the comic books. She was just kind of there, from what I'm told. Amber's different. They didn't just race swap her. They also changed her personality. Where in the comic she was more kind of like a passive girlfriend that only existed to be kind of like a foil or a three-way love triangle between with Eve and Mark and her. And yeah, I think those are the major characters I know that got a kind of there's I think there's one more that I'm forgetting, but those are the two main ones that got kind of a major switch in like their impact on the story.
I definitely think both of those characters were pretty strong. I like the way that the females are depicted in this show. Um, Despite two of them not even having powers, are like two of Mark's biggest supports. Like
Mm-hmm.
he might have all the strength, physical strength, but they both have more mental strength to support him, and even carry on their own. Like no one messes with him. Even in the first episode, Amber doesn't need him,
Right.
and his mom, like she definitely. I mean, I really don't know what her role is gonna be in the future, but um, she's definitely one of Omni Man's soft spots. So I have a feeling she's gonna have a much bigger role to play in the next season.
I think you're right about that. Yeah, I was impressed with both characters, and I liked both characters. Um, Although my how much I liked Amber changed in the what was it the penultimate episode, the episode right before the end, where we find out that she knew that Mark was a superhero the whole time, but literally earlier she was yelling at him saying, "Where were you? You left us. Like, what's wrong with you?" And you're like, "Wait a second, but." You know that he's a superhero and you knew which superhero he was, so you know that he was the one that was fighting in this moment. So why are you playing like this right now and giving him so much crap? um and that just it came off as weird because then it recontextualizes their entire relationship, because Mark ends up in the hospital because he's being a superhero and helping people. And she and when she finds out that she's a superhero, that means that she also knows that. So it felt very weird for the character to react in that way, especially considering it's not like they're husband and wife, they're boyfriend and girlfriend, and they've only been together for 6 months. So he's not really entitled to have to tell her something that's that big. So for the character to kind of make that about her just felt like very poor writing, and a character that up until that point you were 100% understood because you thought that she didn't know. You couldn't be angry at her because she doesn't know. So yeah, Mark, you're being a jerk because you're leaving her hanging. She doesn't know why you're leaving her hanging, but we also know that you're a superhero. So as the audience, you're like, man, I can kind of understand both sides. But the moment that you find out that she knew, it kind of just destroys that part of the character for me.
Yeah, I could. Oops, sorry. I kind of
You said
felt like
what?
that. Sorry, hit the mic. Um, but I agree. I did kind of feel like that too. Like I was surprised that she was making, like she's being kind of dramatic about about how he was treating her as a girlfriend. But then at the especially like she we don't know how long she knew, but we know that she knew,
Mhm.
but she was still getting angry at him. But I think you know it's hard to say because on the one hand, I do feel like you're right. They're not married. They only just kind of started dating. So it just seems like a lot for her to ask from him to to give her, more attention, knowing that and the lies and stuff. I
Yeah.
think it's just when it comes down to it that he was lying to her. He wasn't being honest with her, and I think if if he really wanted to, if he really cared about the relationship, he probably should have told her sooner.
Hmm.
So in that kind of sense, I kind of understand, but it's kind of like, eh. You'd have to think so much more about it on that side of, trying to see where she's coming from, as opposed to just being like, what? But she knew. Why is she giving him a hard time?
Yeah, no, you're right. I think you're definitely right about that aspect. I think the only thing that bothers me was the fact that when he comes back at the campus, she literally yells at him and says, "You abandon us," when you know that she knows that they didn't. He didn't. So that's why I was like, that doesn't make sense. I think that's the thing I'm getting stuck on. But I think everything else you said makes 100% sense. Like the lying, we've seen that with Spider-Man. It's the same type of thing, lying about who he is, and then like the sacrifices he makes. So yeah, but the arc for the character is not done. The arc for any of these characters aren't done. If we watch season one of Game of Thrones, you don't know anything about where Jon Snow is going to end up. So one season isn't enough to make a judgment for a whole character because the story is not complete. Because so it can go anywhere, and that's the same thing with Debbie, like you said. So I'm definitely interested in to see how these characters develop. I liked some of the other characters that popped up. I love the Mauler twins. They're really fun to me. I like the idea of these two clones that are big brutes, but also super highly intelligent because I feel like I don't see that enough outside of people like Bruce Banner. And even when he turns to the Hulk, most of the time he's dumb. So yeah, and characters like the that are in the team that become new Guardians. I hated Rex Blode at first, and now I kind of like how much of a jerk he is. So yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with these characters in the future.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe there's more to Amber than we know. Like maybe there's more information that we just didn't get yet. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I never trusted Robot.
but that's Zachary Quinto. How can you not trust Zachary Quinto?
Because he was Siler in
You're a
Heroes.
Siler, I know.
I don't trust him. He being Spock does not make everything better.
Right. Yeah. He actually is one of the things that my friend didn't like about the show because of the fact that he basically gets away with he gets away with a couple of things. He gets away with being a criminal. He breaks people out of prison that end up hurting people. He steals somebody else's DNA without asking them. And then at the end of the day, it's just okay. There's no like punishments or repercussions for him doing the things that he did. He basically got to do whatever he wanted and he got away with it. And my friend was very upset with that because he's just like, I'm tired of these heroes doing these like bad things and having nothing happen to them for it.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he's not pure of heart, and neither is Rex and uh, what's her name, Duplicate. So,
Duplicate, yeah.
and I think that's kind of the point is, no one's really that pure of heart except for Mark,
Yeah,
and,
basically.
and maybe Adam Eve.
Yeah. No, that's true. And we'll see if that holds as the stories continue. But as of right now, that's 100% true. We're starting to run up on time here, but maybe we can talk more about this off of our recording. But just really quick, what did you think about having a lead character that was half Asian, half white? Did you know that Mark was mixed? Were you able to tell right away? And were you able to tell that he was mixed with Korean, or was that not really clear?
He looked very Asian to me, and the fact that Debbie also looks very Asian, and they're both played by Asian actors, I totally saw, and I thought it was awesome to have the main character be Asian. It
Yes.
made me very happy, especially since the show is pretty awesome. Again,
Right?
I'm in love with the casting for this.
Yeah, it's on point. Is there anything else that you kind of wanted to bring up before we cut out?
Yeah, I really love, and I can't get over how awesome the way they use the title. They write the title
The blood.
appearance. It's just like anytime someone's about to say invincible, that's when instead of you hearing the character saying invincible, it becomes the title. You just
Yeah.
see the title screen, and that is one of the best things for me about this show. It
I,
gets me
I
every time. I love it. And like when they're about to say, you're like, oh, the title, the title, the title.
yeah, I have to say it really got me too. It just had me thinking in season two, one, are they going to continue doing that? And two, are they going to clean up the season two title and start and keep throwing blood at it again as the season goes on? Because it was a really good like thing for the first season, but I was like, would that get old in like future seasons? So we'll see if they do that again.
Maybe they'll think of something else more clever.
Yeah, I'm very. That's like the thing I'm most curious about. Like all this stuff about will Omni Man return? What's gonna happen with Mark and Amber? Yeah, yeah. I don't care about that. I want to know what they're gonna do with that title in season two. That is the thing that I'm waiting to see. That's the thing I care about. Nothing else. None of the rest of that stuff doesn't even matter.
The show doesn't even matter. Just the way they show the title is the important thing.
Exactly. All right. Well, what did you guys think about Invincible? Did you check it out? Did you watch it? Did you like it? Did you feel like we did, or did you have kind of disagreements about some of the characters? Whatever you thought, excuse me, comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I've been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.